Those are sirens blaring across Israeli cities and Jerusalem today, while interceptions were seen in the sky after another barrage of missiles launched from Iran. People living in the northern city of Haifa ran for cover as the bombs started falling. New video shows damaged buildings and emergency responders at the scene. CBS News Holly Williams is in Iraq following the latest developments.
Israel's military says that overnight it had over 50 fighter jets flying non-stop over Iran's capital, Tehran, and that they hit nuclear-related locations and missile production sites. After just over a week of war, Iran's air defense systems are clearly in tatters. And Israel's also succeeded in targeting and killing several Iranian nuclear scientists and senior military officers. It's a very different story in Israel, where Iranian missiles have been deadly when they've hit, but Israel's multi-layered air defense system has succeeded in intercepting the vast majority of Iranian missiles and drones. Iran has already accused the US of being complicit in Israel's attack and has threatened to target American military bases. The country's supreme leader said a US military intervention in Iran would be met with, quote, irreparable damage. Now, US bases are scattered across the Middle East, including here in Iraq, along with around 40,000 American troops. Back in 2020, the Iranians targeted the Al-Assad base here in Iraq with ballistic missiles. And we were there just a few days later to witness the extensive damage, though no US service members were killed. Now, with Iran weakened by Israel's onslaught, we don't know what kind of retaliation it would be capable of. Holly Williams, CBS News, Erbil in northern Iraq.
And in a last-ditch effort for diplomacy, President Donald Trump has set a 2-week timeline for a decision on whether to strike Iran. Let's bring in CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang. Weijia, thank you for joining us today. Is the president's deadline final, or is there room for negotiations in all of this?
With this president in particular, there's always room and flexibility. And oftentimes we have seen him set deadlines with regard to other things like tariffs or the Russia-Ukraine war, and then he himself extends them or changes them. So it's unclear whether this is the capital T final deadline for Iran, but it does seem like this is the final chance that Tehran has to come to the table. So if there is progress in the next few weeks, you know, they could extend the talks. But we really don't know because this is a president who often changes the game plan in the middle of the game.
Right. But what are the top concerns for the White House when it comes to potentially entering this war?
Well, there are several, because there are many unknowns on the other side if the U.S. becomes more directly involved, including what that means for a potential power vacuum at the top when it comes to Iran's leadership, what that means for retaliation for the U.S., and just how great of a war this could become, even though it's not a war in the traditional sense that one country is invading the other one. You know, top military experts we spoke with said surely there will likely be repercussions after this, and so the unknown is how extensive that could be, how it could draw in the U.S. Military, and what that could mean for threats even here at home. In fact, our White House team just reported that there is heightened security, heightened alerts for potential sleeper cells for terrorists who might be thinking about retaliation in the U.S. And so there are lots of concerns and worries about, you know, what a potential U.S. strike could really do, not only to escalate things in the region, but to expand it further.
And we know the president is set to travel to The Hague on Monday. What exactly are we watching for there with that trip?
He is going there for the NATO summit, which is the annual meeting of all the countries that are a member of NATO. So, of course, this will be, you know, a very important topic of discussion, as so many of those countries are watching this closely. But at the same time, they have other priorities as well, including the Russia-Ukraine war. And the president, as I mentioned earlier, you know, has set arbitrary deadlines for a ceasefire, for there to be progress in talks, and then nothing happens if those aren't met. So, you know, it will be a big conversation about how realistic an off-ramp is to end that conflict. And also, we'll be watching for the president's interaction at NATO, because he has long criticized this alliance. He has even once threatened to pull out of it, which now would require congressional approval after he made those threats. But, you know, NATO is not something that the president is a big fan of, and he has really expressed that a lot. But it should be noted, Mugo, that he has shortened his trip there. And as far as we know so far, he's only committed to a dinner with all the leaders. There is another meeting the next day, and there were actually supposed to be several days worth of gatherings with the president. But CBS News has learned they actually tailored the schedule because they were worried he was going to bail on those meetings, just like he did when it came to the G7, and he rushed back here to Washington.
Okay. Weijia Jiang, live for us from the White House. Thank you so much for your insight. We appreciate your reporting.